Hey friends, it's Jules. Welcome back to my channel. It's time to talk about what I read in January. So I'm just going to go in order as I read the books in January. All month long, I participated in a reading challenge for Gwen's Patreon. We played Clue. I typically do not show the books that I have. I usually just do a picture of them, but I have a lot of the books that I read on me, so I pulled them out. We're gonna just do it a little bit different this time. So just some quick stats. I read 21 books in January and my average rating was 4.0. I don't think I've ever had an average rating over 3.7 maybe. So that means I enjoyed all my books in January. I did not DNF any books, and I did not have anything lower than a 3-star in January. So January was a great reading month for me. So the first book that I read was A Holiday Homicide by Ellie Alexander. I don't have a copy of this, so I did read this on audio, and this is book 4 in her new Secret Bookcase series. And I read it because it was a Christmas one, and I wanted to continue in the series because it's a new series. She has literally put out 5 books in 8 months. So it's been so much fun reading those. I actually just finished the 5th book, which is a Valentine's one. In this series, we're following a main character who works at a bookstore. It's called The Secret Bookcase. And every one of the books has like an event tied in with it. Could be a holiday event or just some kind of event that the bookstore is hosting. So like the very first one was a scavenger hunt, book themed scavenger hunt that they did. So it's like a whole weekend event thing. A second book was like, I think a movie theater one. So it was like kind of staged. All the events were like around movies. There was a murder mystery dinner one. And then this one. And then a Valentine's one. So all of them, they host these events. They have all these like fun different kinds of games and dinners and scavenger hunts and all kinds of things that they can do. And so people buy tickets and come to their city and they do these events. And obviously in all of these, somebody dies and she has to try and solve the murder. The main detective on these is her old criminal justice professor, who's now a detective. So she's kind of working with her to solve these murders that are happening. I love the mystery aspects of them. I love the events that happen. They're just a good time. I like them. I really enjoyed them. I think I've given them all 4 stars. So I did give this one 4 stars. It obviously was around Christmas time, and it had all the Christmas vibes, so it was a good time. I did do a reread of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I wanted to get these read before Onyx Storm came out. So for Clue, when I was needing to get through all these spaces in Clue, I had a lot of pages to read. I read these. I burned through both of these books again, and they were so good. They were so good. I 5-starred both of these again. I 5-starred them the first time. I 5-starred them again. I'm not talking about Onyx Storm in this wrap-up because I didn't read it in January. I did not get to it. I had all the other books that I was going to get to. So it will be my February wrap-up. But just know, I liked it. Then I read A Cherry Cheesecake Murder by Joanne Fluke. I love Joanne Fluke. I love this series. This is the 8th book in the series. We follow Hannah. Hannah owns a bakery. It's cozy mystery. There's murder. She has to try and solve it, as well as all the other back characters in here. I just love this series, and I started a reread of it a couple years ago, I think. So I'd like to try and read one of these a month or every other month to try and get through the series again, because there's a lot. There's a lot, y'all. Anyway, I didn't like this one as well as some of the others, so I did only give this a 3-star, but overall still love this series. The next book I read was for a prompt, and it was a historical romance, which is not my jam, but I read When the Day Comes. Don't know who the author is. Obviously, I'll put a picture of it up because I don't remember. I'm not going to talk much about this one because I did have this in my vlog of the year, my first reading vlog of the year. It was like a weekly reading vlog. So if you want more information on this one, you can go, watch that. But overall, it was a pretty good time. I did give it 3.5 stars, which did surprise me because it was not in my wheelhouse of reading. So I did have a pretty good time with it. The next book I read was The Giver by Lois Lowry. This also is in that vlog, and I do talk about this in detail. I had a really good time with this, and I gave this 5 stars. The next book I picked up was A Dark and Twisting Path by Julia Buckley. This is book 3 in a Writer's Apprentice series. I am really enjoying this series. I didn't like this one as well as the first two that I read. But I do want to complete the series, and it is my goal to complete this series hopefully in the next couple of months. The next book I read was Peter Pan, and I also read Straight On Till Morning. I'm not really going to, I'm going to give you my star ratings, but I have a whole log that I've been working on. It's going to come out soon, y'all, I promise. I read another book with it. Just know that I had a really good time reading Peter Pan. I had never read it before. I gave it 4 stars, and I gave Straight On Till Morning 5 stars. All of my thoughts and reactions to things will be in that vlog coming out soon. The next book I read was A Game of Lies by Claire McIntosh. This is book 2. Although I don't feel like you really need to have read the first one. The first book was The Last Party. In that book, there's like a big New Year's Eve party that happens, and somebody's found dead in the water, and it basically goes through all of, them trying to, do investigating to figure out like what happened to him and find his murderer. And so basically, really, you're just following the same detectives. So a lot of detective books you don't really have to necessarily pick up. I mean, you kind of do to get kind of the backstory of the relationship between the two detectives in the first one, but I don't feel like you have to. So basically this was like a game, a reality game that was happening, and somebody went missing and somebody was murdered, and the detectives are back to try and figure everything out. But it says, stranded in the Welsh Mountains, 7 reality show contestants have no idea what they've signed up for. Each of the strangers has a secret. If another player can guess the truth, they won't just be eliminated. They'll be exposed live on air. The stakes are higher than they'd ever imagined, and they're trapped. The disappearance of a contestant wasn't supposed to be part of the drama. Detective Fionn Morgan has to put aside what she's watched on screen to find out who these people really are, knowing she can't trust any of them. And when a murderer strikes, Fionn knows every one of her suspects has an alibi and a secret worth killing for. So all of them basically, they're playing this game, and they all have a secret, and the other contestants are trying to figure out what that secret is. And so they can say that they want to guess what that person's secret is. If they guess right, then obviously person's exposed. If they guess wrong, then something like their worst fear like happens to them. So like if they're like deathly afraid of snakes or spiders or whatever, they're in a room and like a bunch of snakes and spiders come in or whatever. So obviously they don't want to guess unless they think they know. So they're basically just around each other, talking, hanging out, doing things, trying to gather information to see if they can figure out what their secret is. And then obviously someone disappears. One of the contestants goes missing, and they're trying to figure out if he left or if someone did something to him, and then somebody else gets murdered, and everybody's like on camera at different times. So they have to go back and look at footage to try and figure out who was where and when. And I really liked it. I had a good time with it. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book I read was a NetGalley arc. It is She Doesn't Have a Clue by, I have to look, Jenny Elder Moak. I don't even know if that's how you say your name or not. I have a full in-depth review written up on Goodreads. You can go there and get that. But the gist of it is the main character, Kate, is an author, and she is invited to go to her ex-fiance's wedding to somebody else. And he is her publisher. So that is the only reason like she accepted to go, is because everybody in her, career was like, you need to go, this is good, for you to show that you don't have any qualms with him and things. And so she shows up, and then one of her friends shows up, and it's actually a guy that she used to write like adventure articles about, and something happened with them, and so they kind of weren't really talking anymore. And they showed up, and he wasn't on the list, but she was, and they said that he was her +1, and she's like, no, we're just both here, separately. And he's like, he's not on the list, either he's your +1 or he doesn't come in. So he decided to be her +1, which means they have to room together. And then a lot of sabotaging things happen, and everybody thinks that it's Kate because who best to blame it on than the ex-fiance. So some things happen with the bride. There's other sabotaging things that happen, and then somebody is murdered, and they're trying to figure out who's sabotaging the wedding, who killed the person. She's an author for mystery books. So in her head, she is like, what would such and such do, whoever the main character for her book is. And everybody's like, this isn't a book, this is real life. And so she's basically thrown into her own mystery, trying to figure out, you know, what's happened and who killed this person. And in the midst of it, her and her friend obviously have a connection. There's a chemistry going. Things are building back up. It is so funny. It is so funny, and their relationship is good. It had me cracking up. It is a mashup between a cozy mystery, Clue, and a romance. I can't say. It was so good. I ended up giving that one 4 stars. The next book I picked up was Cheddar Off Dead by Karina Moss, and I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love it, which is weird because I do love food cozies. So I don't know. I just feel like I wasn't connecting with any of the characters really, and they didn't have a lot of development, I guess, or I just didn't believe their relationships. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what the miss was for me, but I do have book 2, so I'm definitely going to continue in book 2. And my friend Laura from Laura Reads said that she enjoyed book 2 better than book 1, which is not typical for cozies, but I'm going to give it a shot. Hopefully she's right, and then hopefully I will just want to continue in the series. My next book I picked up was Till Death Do Us Part by Lori Elizabeth Flynn. This was the Sleep When I'm Dead book club pick. I'm not going to talk about this because we have a whole Sleep When I'm Dead book club discussion about this that you can find on Jess's channel. I was the co-host along with Angie. There's a lot of good talk on that. So definitely go find that link. And if you've read it, if you haven't read it, you don't want to watch it yet. But ultimately, I gave this 3 stars. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. But yeah, all my thoughts are in that video. Another book I picked up for Jesse's Paw Print Pals, which is her Patreon, was The Lake of Lost Girls by Catherine Green. I ate this book up. I listened to this book in one day. So it's supposed to have a podcast element, but I don't really feel like it tracks with that. I also I was on her Patreon. We did a Patreon book discussion on this, so I was also on that. So if you're part of Jess's Patreon and you haven't watched it, go do that. Or also if you're not part of her Patreon, go join her Patreon. So basically you have 2 sisters in different timelines. One sister is missing, but her timeline, she's the older sister, her timeline is in the past when she wasn't missing, and the current timeline is the younger sister, all grown up now. There's a podcast about like unsolved crimes, and there's a bunch of missing girls from this town. That's why it's called the Lake of Lost Girls, because these girls are missing, and they're still trying to figure out like what happened to them. So there's like podcast people, reporters trying to come to the younger sister to be like, what happened? What do you remember? Because she was the last person to see her sister. Basically, her sister came home because her sister was in college. The older sister, the missing girl, was in college. So that's where these girls were missing from, is college. And she came home for a birthday party for the younger sister. And she went outside to get some presents. She looked out the window at her. She waved and said, go back inside, because there was a guy there to talk to her. And then when she looked back out, she was gone. So it kind of just goes back through. So the past timeline is the older sister when she's in college. It kind of goes, it leads up to her disappearance. And then the younger sister's timeline is basically her going back, trying to figure out what happened and see if she remembered anything, and doing research. It was really good. It was really fast paced. I enjoyed it, and I gave that one 4 stars. Next book I picked up was for Gwen's Patreon. We read Anne of Green Gables. We are reading this entire series this year. So I have never read this before, and I really had a good time with this. I feel like this is something that I wouldn't have picked up. I guess it just wasn't really my type of book when I was, it really isn't my type of book now, but like after I read it, I was like, oh, that's so good. So I'm discovering as I'm getting older that I'm finding books that I would not have ever picked up are actually pretty interesting to me. So I feel like Gwen's Patreon is broadening my horizons of book reading. So also, if you're not in Gwen's Patreon, you should go join it. It's great. So Yeah, so I really just loved Anne. So if you don't know the premise of Anne, basically Anne is an orphan and she goes to Green Gables. She is adopted, by a husband and wife. They have a farm, which is Green Gables, and they thought they were getting a boy, and instead they got a girl and they didn't want her. But Anne is very eccentric and vocal, and she describes everything so perfectly. I love how she describes everything in life, and she's just very positive. But yeah, we just follow her along as, she's coming into herself and learning, how to be the best daughter she can to this couple. And yeah, it was just such a good read. So I'm excited to continue in the series. I gave this one 4 stars. The next book I picked up was Christine by Stephen King. I have a whole vlog about this, so I'm not going to talk about this. If you want to know about this vlog, I had a buddy read that I did with Gwen and April. And yeah, I ultimately gave this 3 stars, but like I said, all my thoughts are in that vlog. The next book I picked up was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I did get the whole box set for Christmas, so I have the whole set. Jess's Patreon, if anybody wants to reread Harry Potter, we are reading that. So we read the first book in January, and I decided to read it with this lovely illustrated copy. I had such a fantastic time reading it this way. I read along, I did the audio and I read along with it. And I do have, for February, I'm going to be reading the next book. I do have the second illustrated copy as well for book 2 because my friend Corinna got it for me. She's so sweet. Thank you so much. And so I'll definitely be reading that this month this way. But yeah, I love Harry Potter. I love all the movies. And so I have been rewatching the movies as well and having just a lot of fun with it. So obviously Harry Potter gets a 5 stars for me. The next book I picked up was Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. This was the pick for Gabby's book troop, and this was dark. And there were some disturbing things in it. But in case you don't know what it's about, it says, Libby Day was 7 when her mother and 2 sisters were murdered in the Satan sacrifice of Kinnicky, Kansas. She survived and famously testified that her 15-year-old brother Ben was the killer. 25 years later, the Kill Club, a secret society obsessed with notorious crimes, locates Libby and pumps her for details. They hope to discover proof that may free Ben. Libby hopes to turn a profit off her tragic story. She'll reconnect with the players from that night and report her findings to the club for a fee. As Libby's search takes her from shabby Missouri strip clubs to abandoned Oklahoma tourist towns, the unimaginable truth emerges and Libby finds herself right back where she started, on the run from a killer. First of all, I didn't like that Libby is this grown woman who is literally just living off of the funds of people who felt sorry for her or were trying to support her because she was the child survivor of this family massacre. Which obviously trauma is going to come with that. Just seems like she never has the desire to want to do anything with her life other than be the victim. And she's just kind of like sailing on the coattails of this money, and this money is running out. She has a person who's in charge of her money, is basically telling her, your money's running out. You need to do something with your life, maybe go to school or something. But like it said, this group comes and finds her, and basically they want to figure out what happened because they don't think her brother did it. And she testified that her brother did it. And so he's like, but are you sure? And she's like, yeah, I saw it. But she was little. And so they just feel like maybe she was coaxed into saying that he did it just so they could like wrap it all up. And so for a fee, she does start doing some investigating with this group. I do love that it's set in Missouri and Kansas. It's very close to home. So I did enjoy that fact of it. But there was a very descriptive animal abuse in here. I just skipped right ahead past that because I don't like that. You would not know that from that. So that is a trigger warning. There was a couple of animal abuse things, but, satanic ritual type stuff. And I just didn't love that. So Overall, I did end up just giving this a 3 stars because it was somewhat enjoyable. I did like the aspect of them, you know, trying to really come up with the truth to see what really happened, because even though he was convicted, it's not really, still didn't say what happened. So I kind of like that investigative part of it. But yeah, overall, it was just average for me. My next one is Snow Place for Murder by Diane Kelly. This is book 3 in the Mountain Lodge mysteries. Our main character, her and her husband got a divorce amicably, and she opens a resort. It's a mountain lodge. So basically each book has a different group of people that come and stay at her resort, and something happens and there's a murder and all the things, you know, the cozy mystery things. But I do like the series. I didn't really like this one as well as the first 2. But in this one, it's winter time and there's a bunch of snow, and there is a group that comes in. There's like a new developer. He's wanting to open like another resort close to the area, and some people aren't wanting him to do that. And it talks a lot about skiing, because there's like a ski resort also close to there. And, you know, the person that's found murdered is frozen to death. I just didn't really like the plot of this one really, I guess, as much. I did enjoy that her sons that are in college came back, for vacation, and, they were skiing, and the ex-husband also comes and stays there too. So like I said, they still do have a good relationship. So it was pretty good. I mean, it was a quick read, but again, not one of my favorites. And there's only 3 in the series, and this one came out in 2023. So I don't know if there's going to be any more in the series or not, or if there'll just be these 3. If there are more that come out, I'm caught up. But I did end up giving this one 3 stars. The next book I picked up was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I was nervous about this because Grady Hendrix is really hit or miss for me. Some of his books are just kind of mid. There's really only been a couple books that I really liked, and one being My Best Friend's Exorcism. I really did like that. The rest I've just been kind of average 3 stars for me, so I was a little concerned. But y'all, I tabbed the heck out of this, and I love this. I gave this book 5 stars. I ate this book up. I am going to be talking about this on Gwen's podcast, Talk Bookish to Me. We're recording for this actually on Sunday, I think. And so I'm not sure when it's going to come out on her podcast, but we will have all our thoughts on this. Last book I picked up in January was Restaurant Weeks Are Murder by Libby Klein. This is the 3rd book in the Poppy McAllister series. This is one of my all-time favorite cozy mystery series. And I said that after reading book 1. I was like, I love this series. I read book 1 and it had me laughing and chuckling. It was just the best time. And each book after that just keeps getting better and better. So one of my goals is to read this complete series this year. There are 9 books in the series. So I've got it strategized how I want to read them for the rest of the year, because I have to read this whole series because I just love them. I love the characters. I love Poppy. In this one, they are doing a culinary competition, which, again, anything food related and a cozy, I am there for it. And it is just such a fun time. Her aunt cracks me up. I just love the characters. And so let's see. So the next ones, I'm looking over here on my laptop, just so you know. So the next one is Theater Nights Are Murder, Wine Tastings Are Murder, Beauty Expos Are Murder, Antique Auctions Are Murder, Mischief Nights Are Murder. That one's around Halloween, around a haunted dinners tour. Okay, that sounds fun. And then Silent Nights Are Murder. So the last 2 are Halloween and Christmas, so I definitely have to get them. So I'm kind of on par for like leading up to those at the end of the year. So that is my goal, to finish this whole series. I hope I love all of them. I have 5-starred all 3 of the first books. They're such a good time. I love them. Dare I say, I might like them better than my Joanne Fluke books. They're funnier. They are funnier. Okay. So I think that's why they're like different realms. So the Poppy McAllister series is basically like a B&B. Her and her aunt own a B&B. Well, not in the first one. They turn her aunt's home into a B&B. And then, of course, you know, Joanne Fluke's a bakery and baking. So they're like completely different types. And The Silent Nights or Murder just came out in September of 2024. So I am hoping that she is still continuing in this series. Fingers crossed, because I'm loving it. Okay, friends, that is it. That is my wrap up for January. Let me know in the comments below, what was your favorite read of January? Did you get all the books read that you want to get read? And until my next video, be yourself, be awesome, be kind.